ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first session here, the Leopard Hall 1A, third day of the Africa Energy Week. And our country spotlight is this morning being beamed on a country with an enormous potential, and is transforming that potential into actual capacity and development by putting up the right regulatory framework and attracting the needed investments, especially into the LNG, or should I say natural gas space. The reserves that are estimated over 500 billion cubic meters of natural gas. Mozambique truly is a choice destination for anyone who is seeking to be a key player in the natural gas industry, especially as it concerns LNG. And of course, giving birth to the Coral Sul FLNG, the first floating natural gas liquefaction unit built on the continent, is another testament to Mozambique's commitment to not only attracting the right investors, but creating the enabling environment for these investors to thrive and for their own resources and their people to also flourish. So welcome. My name is Richmond Osuji. My job is simple, extremely simple, and the easiest part of this morning is to bring before you the panel of experts who will do justice as to why you should invest in Mozambique Energies if you're not already doing that, and why you should increase your involvement if you are already doing that. So real quick, I will just get the panel on the stage and they will begin the conversation. Let me start by welcoming our moderator for this panel, who is the senior partner and global head of sales at Rystad Energy. Welcome, Matthew Watson. Matthew, please. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Matthew will be joined by the executive chairman of Mozambique Oil and Gas Chamber. Let's welcome Florival Mucave. You're welcome, Mr. Mucave. Joining them, I'd like to welcome General Manager and LCM Mozambique ExxonMobil. Let's welcome Frank Kretschmer. Frank, you're welcome. Julien Larour is the Managing Director of Mozambique Technip Energies. You are welcome. Rudencio Moraes is on the panel. EVP ENH, you are welcome. Ivan Codinodo is the Technical Director ENI Rovuma Basin. You are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for our panel of experts as they take center stage. Matthew, the show is yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and welcome to my esteemed panel. I think we've got a really good mix of representatives here to give us a flavor of where we are in Mozambique. Of course, this is an extremely pivotal region within the global gas space, and putting Africa firmly on the map as an LNG exporter. And there's been a storyline around Mozambique from start of the last decade with the exciting discoveries that we've seen. We've seen Coral Sul coming online, and a number of other exciting prospects which we will talk about today, allowing Mozambique to really kind of grow and boost their gas production to become that influential player. So I look forward to speaking to the people on the panel. We've got a great mix, as I say, representatives from the major players, with both ENI and Exxon represented. So we look forward to hearing a little bit about what they're doing, how they see the opportunity space. We've also got the National Oil Company represented here from Mozambique, as well as the Mozambican Energy Chamber. So I think, from a localized point of view, how do we think about the private sector working with the national sector to drive this success? And of course, none of this is possible without the skill set, the knowledge, and the ability to bring these projects online, and so it's fantastic. Technip are represented as well, who have a history already within the region of working on some of the successes we've seen, and I'm sure will be heavily focused on continuing that trend. So thank you everybody for joining me. I think maybe a good place to start, because I've got a number of topics I want to dive into, and I think any good panel is about creating conversation. So I encourage all of you to speak up, interrupt, let's have a good dynamic conversation. But I'd like to maybe start with the IOCs and majors who are on the panel here, and maybe just give us a short update in terms of where you are as a company within your projects and developments, and then we can kind of spin off from that into some other thematics. So maybe we can start with Exxon. Of course, exciting to have you guys here, and the big plans you have in the Rovuma basin with Area 4, of course, high expectations, I think, both globally and in terms of the contributions to the country itself. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about where you are and what Exxon's up to.
No, thanks for having me today, and again, very humbled to be here in Cape Town. It's a good opportunity to speak to all of you, to our panelists here, and talk a bit about Mozambique and what Mozambique's role on this energy landscape is. Before I dive into ExxonMobil a bit, I think because there's some elephants in the room to be addressed in terms of there are other contributors to what's going on in the north of Mozambique, and I don't want to let this just go. We have tons of NGOs, others, embassies, US aid, you name it, who are actually in the last years actively supporting the development in the region. Coming up with initiatives, providing funds, trying to create development opportunities for the people in the region together with what ENI is doing, what we're doing, what Total is doing, and socio-economic type initiatives. It's a very, very good progress which is made in Cabo Delgado. In addition, I think the government and all the supporting partners from South Africa, Rwanda, you name it, the European missions have done a great job in progressing, creating a safer, more secure environment to actually develop a project onshore on the coastline near in Cabo Delgado and Afungi. So I think there have been very, very great progress being done over the last years, and I think we are really moving into a climate where investment decisions for Afungi can be done. And you look at the numbers, the number of people who are returning back home, the numbers of places which have been secured in Cabo Delgado, it all speaks for itself. In addition, what we are doing as a company, we have used the time and really deep thinking about the conditions of the project and what has changed around us. A lot of different perspectives. Today, security is one. Greenhouse gas emissions is another one. The competitiveness of a project in the world has changed with the emergence of large competitors coming out of the US Gulf Coast. And this really drove a rethinking of our development concepts. It's a piece of work which we have done over the last 1.5, 2 years. And we ended up in a project design which is a modular design we are intending to build 1.5 million ton trains. And this has a couple of different benefits. It addresses security, it addresses footprint, because most of the assembly, most of the work is being done out of country. It reduces our footprint in terms of size and outlay on the plant. It makes our construction more secure and less exposed, because we have far less people needed to build the facilities in Afungi. We have addressed with this design, because it's an electric-driven modular design, a big question which is out there in the world. How do we effectively reduce greenhouse gas emissions? This is a very good path forward, a pathway to close to zero greenhouse gas emissions, in combination with a resource which is in itself very low CO2 content. Addressing this helps to work on the other question, and project financing, because a lot of partners in this area like the concept of addressing climate change, addressing greenhouse gas emissions. And we have found a way to actually have a very cost-efficient development by using supply chains outside of Mozambique, assembling stuff in a very efficient way, fabricating it, one design, build many concept. So we are on a pathway to really are able to move forward to an FID decision by early 26. We are currently going through a competitive FEED process. We will most likely by mid next year start some early works in Afungi to get things going, keep it on track, allowing us to get first LNG in 2030. So it's a very exciting time, and exciting not only because we did our homework, it's exciting to see how others are doing their homework, how everything comes together. We're thankful for our cooperation with ENI. I think having a first foundation of a producing asset in country with Coral South is very important, I think, for the country, enabling first cash flows coming in. So it is an attractive place. I think we are seeing all the elements coming together as they should be at the moment. So very excited to be there, calling it my home at the moment, and getting this project going.
Great. And I think you've touched on a lot of topics that I think we can dive into further. And of course, the significance of this project, you mentioned, expecting FID next year. I think it's exciting to see these things moving along. The change in concept, I'd really like to speak to Technip a little bit about, how you think about these opportunity spaces in terms of, maximizing the potential from a supplier point of view. We've of course got ENI here as well, but I think safety, innovation, sustainability, the things that you've mentioned, and I think those are core aspects to anybody developing oil and gas assets globally, and to be competitive, to attract the capital. And there's a lot of things that we have to be super aware of. So it's great to hear Exxon very much focusing on that. But if I kind of bring it over to ENI, as you mentioned, ENI an established player in Africa in general, but been here for a while. Maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about how ENI are sitting right now within the Mozambican space.
Yeah. It's historically the financial market perception in Africa, we know, has been probably a bit more challenging than in other parts of the world. And this is probably mainly related to, risk perception factors. But on the other hand, we all know that there are ingent resources and a very huge potential that is awaiting to be unlocked, with the expectation of bringing, enormous benefits to the African countries first, and then to the investors. In this context, ENI has always had, since the beginning, a very special bond with African countries, and has always been very keen of investing in Africa and with Africa. And in the past 15 or 20 years, Mozambique, with this enormous potential, has entered in the list of the countries where we are working and we are developing and trying to bring value together, of course, with the Mozambican authorities. It is a fact that the first ever FLNG project that has been managed through a project financing scheme is the Coral Sul project. So it's a project that has been done not in Far East or US or any other place of the world. It's been done in Africa and in Mozambique. And I think this is a key factor that is unlocking also the trust for further investing in Africa, and particularly in Mozambique. Giving another example, you all know we are ready now to implement, let's say the twin project of Coral South, which is Coral Nord, and just to be practical, bring in examples of why investors are keen to participate in this project. So which are the benefits that they see in this project? There are many. Just to give you some, first of all, the successful track record. So investors can leverage on the successful case of Coral South that delivered the project in line with time and cost, and let's say is delivering according to the expectations of the original design. We have presence of ECA and the financial institutions in this project that add, let's say, reliance and the trust, to the project itself. And this institution themselves has also a very deep and special bond also with the government authorities. Economical advantages. So basically we have break-even levels which are very competitive compared to similar projects of the benchmark. Physical security. We are working offshore, so we are somehow independent of any potential issue we may find on the shore. We have the let's say FLNG concept that has been proven in the past years to be a successful scheme of developing and producing LNG under certain conditions and with very well defined specific advantages, I would say. So all these factors together, I think they are an important booster to continue investing in Mozambique, and we are proud to be part of this process together with the government of Mozambique and our partners.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. You've again, I think, highlighted some of the core elements. Being on time and focusing on efficiency. Recognizing the importance from an HSE point of view, from a sustainability point of view, to make it a competitive landscape to be. I want to maybe just kind of pivot away from the private sector and maybe speak to our Mozambican colleagues here. I guess firstly to being the kind of national oil company, the national entity within Mozambique, what do you see your role to be in terms of working with the gentlemen on the stage here and their companies? What is it that ENH's role is as an NOC, which is maybe different to other regions where they very often operate in the assets themselves? So maybe if you could just kind of discuss how you see your role as we develop and we grow this Mozambican opportunity space.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, for the opportunity and for that question. Being a national oil company in Mozambique today, it's quite exciting position because if you see Mozambique as it is today, we do have projects that are on the beginning stage, which we call exploration phase, projects that are on development phase, and I think that was highlighted here, that Rovuma LNG project. And we do have also projects that are on production phase. And when we go for those projects, we need to keep in mind that production in Mozambique started in 2004 by a project that's operated by Sasol and in southern part of Mozambique that we call Panditiaman, that allow us also to have infrastructure that comes from Mozambique to South Africa and to fulfill the needs of gas, and not just in Mozambique, but also the southern part of Mozambique. So being a national oil company put us in a position to better understand and to better create those opportunities in order to allow all the other parts to convey for the same purpose, which is to bring the gas into production phase. So our aim as ENH is to make sure that those projects will contribute to the development of the country, that those projects will provide domestic gas, because we do need to develop domestic market in Mozambique, in the Africa, in the region, that we are providing to the world a clean energy for that process that we call energy transition process. So we put Mozambique not just on the map, but we are also saying that Mozambique is a key solution to make able that process of energy transition. So we are in the better position to accept investors that need to develop their activities in Mozambique, and the conditions are there. Coral Sul is this example that shows that there is a system that works, there is opportunity that can be taken, there is a condition that allows projects with that such magnitude to be developed and also communicate to the world that it's possible to do business in Mozambique. So the conditions are there, the potential are also there. And if I go back to where I started talking this morning, so we've announced a discovery that has been made in 3 days in Mozambique on the southern part, which is Baobab discovery. So we have drilled 2 wells in a block called the PT5C in last 19 months. So the first one was not positive, the second one was positive, that we call Baobab well. So making us that 2 wells, 1 positive, 1 negative, so it gives us 50% of a success rate. So being that exploration is still alive, and we do need to invest on exploration. So if in one side we are working on exploration, on the other side we are saying for the partner that we are here, that together we can move from exploration to development and from development to the production. Then the question may come, so what are the challenges that we have today? And if you go for the first example in terms of scale of production that we call Coral Sul since 2022, so we realize that there is a gap between the time we discover and the time we start the production. So the discovery in Rovuma basin has been made in 2010, 2014, and the production starts in 2022. So there is a challenge to meet the expectation, not just for the country, but also the region, that we need to bring those resources from the surface, from the subsurface to the surface. And to do that, we really need those guys that we have here on the panel to make sure. So the international oil companies, the EPCIC companies, Technip that we have here, that together can collaborate with a national oil company, can collaborate with the government to make the path that we need to keep developing the country, the continent, and the world. So the key message is that Mozambique is a key enabler for fulfill the challenges today we have when we talk of energy transition. But to make it happen, we do need to produce those resources. And we do need also to concentrate our action on exploration, because that will allow us to have enough reserves to fulfill those needs that we are looking at today.
I think exploration is definitely a topic that we can maybe touch on in a moment. I'm going to come to Technip in a second, because I really want to understand a little bit how you're looking at through your lenses as a partner to these companies. But if I just speak to the chamber very briefly off the back of speaking around the national oil company itself, maybe you could say a little bit around what is the role of the chamber, right, in terms of facilitating, working, and understanding the landscape, both in terms of the individual projects that are going on, but I think even more the significance of Mozambique in the global space, right? And how do we put Africa on the map in what is, to a certain point, a race, right? There's a lot of regions looking at LNG, whether it's Qatar, the US. Now, what is the Chamber's role in terms of supporting and facilitating and understanding the regional needs?
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for having me. The Chamber is, for starters, a hub that congregates small and medium enterprises, primarily small and medium enterprises, both foreign and Mozambican, that operate in the energy sphere or the energy space. We see ourselves as some sort of enabler for every single company that wants to operate in Mozambique. And why an enabler? Because we oftentimes have challenges of change of legislation. The fiscal regime needs to be adjusted for certain projects and for certain objectives. And the Chamber is that player that will be able to enable this conversation oftentimes with the CTA, with the government, to look at the fiscal regime, look at all the legislative cadre that we have in Mozambique and all that package, and to see to what point that package actually will be advantageous to the government and also to foreign companies and to the IOCs. So we play this sort of, we are a midwife of sorts. Because if you want to have these babies called the oil and gas projects in Mozambique, you need a midwife that will be sitting and looking at how do you work on this, how healthy will this baby is. And certainly when you look at Exxon, they want a healthy baby in a certain way. And you look at E&I, they also want a healthy baby. But sometimes the government believes that that baby is a bit too healthy for the environment. So our role is really to sit with all of them and understand, number one, what are their objectives, what are the challenges that they face, and how can we, as a chamber, assist them in achieving those objectives. And the same thing from the government side. We'll sit to the government, and sometimes the government will say, on matters of local content, we would like you to contribute to the conversation with the IOCs. And we'll sit down with the IOCs and understand what is feasible, what is acceptable, and adjust it to the aspirations and expectations of the government.
Yeah.
That's the role we play, primarily. But if you think, in today's lexicon, if you think energy transition, you think Mozambique. It would be difficult to plan globally a just energy transition without bringing Mozambique into play. And simply because of the quantities of natural gas that we have and the quality of the natural gas that we have in terms of the decarbonization of our gas.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important for us as a chamber, for instance, to come here and speak to investors too, and tell investors that there's an El Dorado called Mozambique. We have our challenges, but if you have to comply with the precepts of energy transition, you rather look at Mozambique because you have a great opportunity there.
Yep, no, thank you very much, and I love the reference to being the midwife. I'm going to steal that one. But yeah, I think it's absolutely pivotal that we are, making sure that there is a give and take in the private and public sector, kind of see a mutual beneficial pathway forward. And this session is called Invest in Mozambique, and I think it is about making people understand what is the attractive landscape. We are at the starting point of the storyline, right? And there's a lot of discoveries, a lot of developments going on, but you've referenced exploration. I think there is a need to continue on this pathway for different purposes, and I assume that a lot of this comes down to regulatory aspects, ways that we think about the fiscal terms and so on, and maybe we can touch on that if we have time, but it's great that you recognize the importance of the Chamber's role, and I guess that there is a clear need for collaboration, right? Without collaboration, investment is very, very hard, and I think it's an exciting place to be. I haven't forgotten about Technip, sitting in between the players, but of course for these projects to come online on time, satisfy investor expectations, deliver what Mozambique needs and expects. The supply chain is a pivotal part of that, and of course Technip was involved very much in the initial Coral South project, and I know that you have a very staple position within the Mozambican environment. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what Technip has done here, with Mozambique being the first African built FLNG project, and some of the concepts going forward. So over to you, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your experiences and also from an innovation point of view, right? How do you think about making sure that what you're putting out is the most competitive?
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you again for having me in this beautiful panel. So what Technip Energies has done is invest in Mozambique. So to answer the question straightforward, I mean, we have been established since the beginning of the journey of Coral Sul since 2018. We have developed an operating center over there, which is 95% of Mozambicans, all engineers. We have invested in people. I think that the core things to understand, because Technip Energies, we have been in this LNG business since 65 years now. The first LNG train in Algeria was designed by Technip Energies. So we have a bit of reference in this field. But we know that to perform this work, these mega complex works, we need to invest on people. And that's key. I mean, I've done engineering studies, so I've spent a couple of time to understand how to design and what we want to develop in Mozambique is this. And to be honest, it is working well. And the key element and the key success factor is people in this long journey. Training program, investing in people, and try to expose them of what the LNG market is all about. So, of course, through Coral Sul, we have sent people in South Korea, we have sent people in Japan, we have sent people in France, in Portugal, even in Brazil from the subsea system at that time, but just to expose and to take the role for the future leading role of this market, because at the end of the day, we as Technip Energies, we have the know-how, but we need to transfer this know-how to Mozambican because they are the one who have the guys and are going to operate for the next decade. So for us, it's very important and fundamental to support Mozambique development in that respect and invest again in people. So I'm very pleased today, for instance, to say that some of the people that we have employees now are working in Qatar, for instance, on NFS and FE projects, taking a leading role in subcontracting and management. Some of others are in our operating center in Abu Dhabi. Some of the people was in Paris in the COMEX to promote employability. So after 4 years and a half in Mozambique, because I'm living in this beautiful country, the first thing I met is knowledgeable, committed people, and people who want to develop their country. And I think that the key elements for us, either from operator perspective, from chambers, or from us as EPC, is to find this ecosystem that people believe that LNG is a chance in terms of development and wants to invest. So at the end of the day, of course, Coral Sul, we are very pleased to be part of this journey with our partner JGC and South Korean SHI. We are leading the consortium with them. This project has been delivered on time. Now it's an open door for the second one. And the market is responding positively to that, so we'll be supporting again and try to do things differently, by the way, Ivan, on the local content perspective. There is other technology to be put in place, partnership to be done, etc. And now we have been as well awarded on the Rovuma LNG project, for the FEED, at least maybe for the EPC, we'll see after the competition. But in order to develop, and coming back to the innovation and technology, a robust CapEx, competitive, with a good portion of local content, and time to market efficient. I think that's what the market wants, because if you put Mozambique into the map, and that's what Coral Sul put, at the end of the day you will have outside customers, so you need to decarbonize your molecules, and you will have inland customers, which will be the region, South Africa for instance, which deserve of gas, I guess. So voilà, I think Mozambique, and again, as a truly believer of Mozambique, will play a big role for the next decades to provide this decarbonized energy molecule. Us as Technip Energies is obvious we need to be there, because we have the know-how to develop this type of asset worldwide, and hopefully this journey will be continuing with as long as we're speaking today.
I mean, of course, Technip has a history and knowledge of delivering such types of projects kind of globally. You mentioned other regions. Is there anything specifically unique, around what you're doing here in East Africa versus, you mentioned Qatar, kind of other elements. Is there anything kind of specific that you, when you're looking at the size and scale of these types of projects, need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, the investment is big in Mozambique, and the difficulties that all of us get in Qatar, you have already a consolidated market with supply chain, etc. in place. So in Mozambique, we are starting a bit far away from that, but that's what we need to build. So the challenge, I think, will be there, and of course we'll provide our expertise, but I think from operator or either government perspective, there is some expectation on that. So the scheme is different. We are in Africa, we are not in the Middle East. So the complexity, the logistics, the supply chain is different. And we need to take that into consideration through the development of the project.
And I agree, and I think Mozambique is exciting, but you are starting off at a very different place, right? And maybe if we kind of bring Exxon in here because you have a sizable position in East Africa, but of course Exxon is, the largest privately owned oil and gas entity. So where does East Africa, and I guess specifically Mozambique in the context of this conversation, but your East African interest, where does that sit in your portfolio strategically?
Yeah, if you go back to, and all the esteemed colleagues here, maybe I'm repeating myself a bit, but go back to fundamentals. Gas and oil, even a just transition, is here to stay for a long time. Especially gas. Gas is, in its abundance, in its, cost structure, a fuel which is here to stay. We are even projecting that natural gas, before 2050 will increase, or at 2050 increase by 20% versus today. And LNG is a big part of how natural gas is being brought to customers, not only pipelines. And then take a look at the specifics on geography here. 60 to 70% of the gas demand will be in Asia, of LNG demand will be in Asia. So where is Mozambique, where is Asia? It is a very cost-efficient way to get LNG from Mozambique to Asia. There are certain elements of East Africa which just fits nicely in the expected market development, the size of the market, how the markets are growing, the location where customers are. And you can see it even with the participants in the project, where are they, where they're coming from. And this puts Mozambique firmly on the map with its size, scale, to develop ultra cost competitive projects. We sometimes forget that these projects are 30-year type projects. No one has the magic A-ball here or the crystal ball to see what's happening really in 30 years. But if you want to be successful, there are certain things which you really need to know. You need to be super cost competitive. And we are, as ExxonMobil, you can see where our footprint is. We are focused on these projects in the world which can be super cost competitive. And who are these projects at the moment? It's Qatar. It is Papua New Guinea because it's so close to the market. It is US Gulf Coast. And with the scale and size we are developing with Rovuma, it is Mozambique. And the technology we have now at hand, the modularized E-driven top structure, that's where you can get greenhouse gas emissions cost competitive, close to the market. That's why this project is very important for us. It fits very nicely in what we are doing. It fits nicely into our core competency in developing large-scale projects, heavy capital-intensive type projects, our execution capabilities together with our colleagues, EPC contractors, strong set of partners in the project. I think it fits very nicely in it, and we are happy to move forward and develop this project. And I think you remember what I said on Tuesday. It is, it's a dimension which sometimes people forget as well. The combination of Area 1, Area 4 developments will put Mozambique on the landscape. It is the largest single investment in Africa. Don't forget this. This is a major undertaking which, come back to your point, which will create a lot of local value chains, opportunities for Mozambicans, opportunities for local companies to invest, to provide services, to develop business in Mozambique. And that's what's urgently needed in Mozambique as well, turning Mozambique around from a subsistence farming, no industrialization in the north, to a place which actually has a future and a future for its people. And that's, I think, very proud to be part of this, and I think the boundary conditions are there to make it happen now.
Yeah, I think I will clap. It is absolutely pivotal in the African landscape, as you say, biggest investment and significant just in terms of the global LNG story. But one of the challenges I think across the board is to develop these assets, to kind of explore, to continue this African journey, which, the whole event is about, energy availability and leveraging the resources that we have. Access to capital is always the piece, so invest in Africa, but of course it is a case of, getting those money people coming to the table. And I think it's great we have these conversations. I think there's more willingness to invest in the right projects, but there are stipulations, right, in terms of what these investors want. And a lot of that is around ESG, it's around sustainability, it's around emissions management. And I'm going to throw this question out to any of you, because I think you're all wearing different hats looking at this. But how do you think about that in Mozambique? From a national point of view, how do we position Mozambique to be that attractive place to invest, where we've got the infrastructure, we're investing in the local economy, we are empowering the population and the skills from a operator point of view, that we are developing sustainable, clean, low carbon projects. And I'll just be interested, and anybody can take this, right? What is it that Mozambique is doing, and or even should be doing, or can continue to do, to be that competitive part of Africa that people want to put money into? Anyone want to take that?
I can bring again some practical example now of ENI project in Coral South. I mean, you said it right. Let's say, in order to be appealing to the markets, having a solid narrative in terms of ESG is a fundamental point. Otherwise, I mean, there wouldn't be, enough attraction to this project to be developed. It's not the only condition, but it's one of the most important ones. So we are requested to be, we were talking about technical innovation, but we are requested also to be innovative when it comes also to, let's say, solutions for environment or for sustainability. Coming to the example of Coral South, let's say, the innovation in terms of environment goes along with, let's say, a necessary need of a technical innovation. So since the beginning, the project has adopted this strategy to look for the most advanced state-of-art solutions in order to be energy efficient. So all the project was rounding about this concept, and in the end we have been able to develop this solution where, for example, the installation is zero routine gas flaring, and it has, let's say, a footprint in terms of energy consumption which is one of the lowest compared to the benchmark. I think this is, again, an important factor that plays the success or not of such a project. Another important aspect is the sustainability. In sustainability, being innovative, in my opinion, means adopting a proactive approach. So not doing things just because you have to do it, but because you firmly believe in what you're doing. And this brings basically everybody to put something more, an added value. For example, in Coral South, we have provided, let's say, a series of initiatives that bring access to food, water, education, health capabilities, and the same we are going to replicate in the Coral North project, where we aim in the full lifespan of the project to reach over 1 million people. So I think this is
it's great to hear these examples. Maybe I'll bring the chamber here, because of course, being that midwife, right, sitting between the two, what are the expectations from your side, right, working with your partners here? what's your take, and how much influence and what is the thinking, I guess, that you take as that, entity sitting in between the two parties?
I have to start by saying that Mozambique is open for business. Our fiscal regime, our investment laws are definitely investor friendly. You don't have challenges of repatriation of profits in Mozambique that you have in some other countries. And that's a clear indication that the Mozambican government has been working tirelessly in promoting Mozambique as an investor-friendly destination. We do have challenges, internal challenges, that we are dealing with. And we take them very seriously to deal with them. We have the issues in Cabo Delgado, the European Union has been involved, and those are matters that are being taken very seriously and being dealt with. When it comes to our interaction with our partners, we have to start by saying that for Mozambique, this is a learning process. And we have, I want to believe, the wisdom to call them oftentimes and ask them, how can we work together? So the collaborative approach, this collaborative approach, is really what dictates the growth of Mozambique. We cannot do it without them, but we want to do it with them in a win-win approach. And we've been managing that very well so far.
And I guess, I'll come back in a moment, but I just want to quickly just talk from the supply chain point of view, because I think certainly from the E part, right, the environmental emissions, using technology, making sure that these projects are developed with the right concepts, the right sustainable elements. How does Technip fit in as a partner, bringing your expertise to the types of projects to deliver on those specs?
I mean, on this particular and technical approach, especially when it comes to the development of, for instance, the Rovuma LNG projects, we're talking about electrified trains. So electrified trains meaning minimizing the CO2 emissions, meaning the molecule that you are going to produce at the end of the day, the LNG, will be more or less decarbonized than the others that you have in the world. So you start to be competitive. Okay, so for that you need to design it and integrate it as a retrofit, or from the beginning when you do the plot plant. That's what we do as an engineer, in order to be sure that either the plant or the train will be electrified 100%, and we capture as well the CO2. So that's all the technology that needs to be added to make this project, from an ESG point of view, as well bankable from an investment. So it's all about design. I think it's very important, this design phase, because that's where you choose the technology, that's where you choose the direction of where the plant will be, not only after 5 years, but for the next 30 years. So it's very important at the beginning, and especially today when we talk a lot about decarbonization, etc., you need to take some options. So there is always in each option a risk, there is a capital impact on that, and there is a decision between the government, operators, and the contractor, and the price. So it's so design technology give you an opportunity to reduce your carbon footprint, and then after it's negotiation. And it's much more complex than that. So we as Technip Energies, of course, we have developed now, we have signed a contract in Rovuma where all the trains are electrified with a nuclear plant, so the production will be totally decarbonized, I would say, at least the molecule, and that's what we want to reach as well in Mozambique during the development of the feed of Rovuma LNG. So technology is a key. I mean, again, we need to put where engineering is today, and I think we're entering into a cycle of engineering where we are going to process a molecule and to decarbonize this molecule. So it's really important to understand that this, when we are doing a feasibility study, it's a key element, and then which have a massive impact for all the rest, ESG, investment, etc.
I think it's great to hear those stories, because it really kind of complements the fact that it's working in a partnership environment and understanding, the technical expertise in terms of how to do it, the strategic requirements, from the private sector, and then, of course, working with the government and the national entities to be able to support the requirements locally. I want to come to ENH because, of course, you are, key in the storyline, although not operating these assets, being the national oil company and having that strategy in terms of where Mozambique's going. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this, requirement for exploration, because you brought it up earlier, and I want to kind of understand, where do you see the need to be doing more? And I ask that because, of course, there's an LNG story, right? And I think that's why we're all here, and it's about turning this into the kind of major African hub, biggest investments, putting us on the global map. I mean, Mozambique has also, traditionally been a core provider of domestic African demand. I think, specifically with the Sasol assets supporting the South African demand. But where, from a national oil company point of view, do you see the future of Mozambique, both domestically and internationally, and then where and what should that exploration look like?
Okay, thank you once again for the question. But going back first for the one that has been raised before, the nature of our resource also helps the technology. When I say that is, in Mozambique, a well can produce 200 MMscf, just one well, a day. So you can have a well that can produce from 100 to 200. The other second element that the nature helps technology in Mozambique, it's related with the content of those elements that are not friends for the environment. So when we talk about our gas in Mozambique, we are talking about a gas that is sweet. So our gas in market has also a cleaner element component that is natural. Before we apply all those technologies that we are talking about, CCS, as Rovuma LNG will be coming up with the electrified system, for example. So we have size, we have scale, and we have a cleaner gas that need to be developed. Going back to the question that you addressed, we are also thinking about infrastructure. We have a cross-border infrastructure that's been deployed in 2004 with a capacity of 197 petajoules a year that's fulfill Mozambique and South Africa, the ROMCO pipeline. But we are also thinking about LNG terminals to make able that gas that is in the north of Mozambique being able to come to the south of Mozambique, being able to come to the central part of Mozambique to fulfill the interland countries, to fulfill South Africa, as well as the other parts of the world in Africa. So talking about that, there are projects that are ongoing, which is LNG terminal, Matola LNG terminal, for example. You have in Yasoro and Beira LNG terminal also, that ENH is part of those processes, making able that we're going to have infrastructure that will make possible gas to flow, gas to be pumped, and gas to fulfill the needs of communities. If you go for the exploration side, so you can divide Mozambique in two principal components. There is activity that can be developed in onshore, so it's quite common on the southern part of Mozambique, and there is also activity that can be developed offshore. Yeah. So Rovuma has been a good example of discovering in east part of the Africa, but we have also Angoche side with ENI as A5A a block. 6 blocks has been awarded for 2 principal companies, 5 to CNOOC, a Chinese company, and 1 for ENI. So it means the future of exploration in Mozambique is quite starting. Yeah. So we do have activity that we're going to need to be developed in the next couple of years, say seismic acquisition, wells to be drilled offshore, onshore, and we will an entire country that has a potential that is huge.
So East Africa is basically at the start. We've got great producing assets. We've got discoveries being developed, but there's a lot of high impact wells that we're going to see going forward in terms of opening up even more opportunity. We're coming to the end, but I'm going to a quick fire round. I want everybody. We'll give you 30 seconds each. To just sum up. Why is Mozambique an exciting place to be? Just wearing your lens. I think we've all spoke about different things, but this is your elevator story, your elevator pitch. If I start to my left here, if you just want to sum up a little bit into just with a few words.
Yeah, I mean, summing up, as I said, it's huge potential to be exploited. There are good conditions to work together with Mozambican authorities and really bring valuable projects on the streamline. And finally, yes, we always talk about potential in terms of resources. I want to maybe go out a bit of the question, but delivering one message, going back to what Julien was saying at the beginning, we have never to forget that the real potential is the people.
Yes.
Okay? And what I am, something that I'm really proud of is seeing this potential that grows up day by day while I'm working there in Mozambique. So I think, yes, resources, of course, are the key, but without exploiting the potential of the people of Mozambique and, let's say, launch the basis for what is going to be, you know, the future generation is very
resources and people. Yes. Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, I mean,
30 seconds.
Yeah, size, scale, geographical position, good reservoir, people that are committed with development of the country, a system that can work and can make possible those resources to come up from exploration, development, and production. So come and invest in Mozambique.
Size, scale, people, opportunity. Yeah, I think great words that you tied in there and really resonates with, I think, what we've discussed.
Yeah, I mean, people, yes, definitely, and we'll keep investing on people, keep developing engineering services from Mozambique by Mozambican. I think that's my key goals for the next 5 years, and to implement that for the large-scale project. As it's the more we are going to operate for Mozambique, the more Technip Energies will be a success. So that's where we are.
So big future, people are key. Invest in people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, 10 seconds. Collaboration stays a course. Demonstrated so far that partners in Mozambique can work together, make things happening. Stay the course, develop your skills and capabilities as government, as partners, move forward, unwavered from whatever is going on, hard to say sometimes, and don't lose sight of what we really want to have.
Yeah.
Developing, unlocking these resources, developing the potential of the people, and actually making things happen finally.
Yeah. I like that, stay the course. I think that's a very powerful statement because it's a winding road, right? It's not a straight line. So that collaboration, surrounding ourselves with cooperative partners who are solution orientated and sticking to that goal. Yeah. And then finally, the chamber. I think it's great that you're sitting on the end because you play the role in bringing this together. So maybe we can hear some final words for you to close us off.
Thank you. I would say that one of the major issues that keeps investors awake at night, the biggest nightmare, is energy transition. We're not going back on this one. There will be a net zero by 2050 or 2060. Mozambique has the right resources. We have the clean gas. We have the right quantities of gas. If you look at Africa, Africa will have approximately 1.2 billion people by 2050. If you look at Mozambique as a hub, as your investment hub, insofar as energy is concerned, you'll be doing very well in Africa. So we are very well positioned. And my last one is a big appeal to the NGOs that fail to understand the importance of natural gas in development of our countries and of Africa. And really would like to invite them to come to Mozambique to have a conversation. And we'll take them to the areas where gas, natural gas, will make a real difference in that child that needs to study at night and just needs that electricity to be able to study at night. That woman that needs to cook. And unfortunately, her house is burned because she has been using wood or charcoal. So to those NGOs, we really would like to invite them to understand in depth what impact their utterances in the West are doing into our country.
Right.
We just ask them to assist us with moving towards development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody. I think it's been a really interesting panel with unique insights, looking at this from very different angles, and hopefully the audience have enjoyed it as much as I have. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and I'll pass it back to our Chief Moderator.
Yes, thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. You can now please go back to the technical area. Just go back to the technical area. Thank you very much. You want to get a shot of them? All right, just smile for a family photo. The Mozambican gas family photo. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going over to our next panel immediately. Please take your seats if you are interested in that